Guys, in this video we're going to talk about the Pilot voice box and the Season 1-2 voice box. I'm going to talk fast so that I don't have a 30-minute video on your hands. I don't want to make you sit too long and watch this, but in this video I'm going to talk about what you are to expect when you get this voice box, what your responsibilities are as far as install, and I'm going to show you some tips and tricks to get this installed successfully without a lot of headache. So I'm going to start with the Season 1 voice box first. What you're going to do, you cut your hole on the center right here. It's different than the sides. This side, this little beveled edge, and this lip back here is to sit on top of the fiberglass. Okay, so you cut your hole the same size as the back here, and then drop it in. This little lip catches the fiberglass. This one is not like that. If you want it like the TV show, you need to cut the fiberglass so that this little edge sits inside the fiberglass, and the fiberglass is flush with the front of this voice box right here, and the same thing on the bottom. It'll be flush with the front, and then you work it in with your glaze, clean it all up, and you have a flush fit from the countdown all the way down through the voice box, down through the pods. Okay, now like I said, if you want it like that with that lip sticking up, I see a lot of guys do that. I don't know if it's because they like it that way or if it's because they don't know that it's supposed to be flush if you're trying to match the show, but now you know. So when it comes to painting and priming this thing, you need to put some kind of tape, some kind of masking material on the inside lip on these openings if you can. And you also want to use something inside these holes so that overspray doesn't come through the front and get to the inside, because that's going to make it a headache for you to get your acrylics in. So if you use a sponge material, just pack it down in here. Sponge doesn't have lint and it's really clean. So if you try to use napkins or something, you run the risk of lint flying out these holes and getting all over the face of the voice box. Then you have to let it dry, water sand, and paint it all over again. So I wouldn't recommend that. Just use some kind of a sponge material. You can probably get it at a hobby store. And just use tape on these inside walls right here. All right. Sorry about my chickens. I think somebody's dying over there, choking or something. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, so now let me move to the Pilot voice box. All right, so this one, you'll see when I design this, I've got a little ledge right here. This voice box is not going to be the same in the center as it is the other voice box. It's almost actually kind of opposite. So this one is going to install, your fiberglass needs to be flush with this front edge right here. All right, not this little lip back here. All right, and this edge, this front edge right here is going to be 1/8 of an inch lower than your fiberglass that meets it. And the reason that is, let me set this down. When you put your acrylic in right here, I'm gonna have to lay it down. I can't do this. When your Knight 2000 acrylic installs right here, you can see it's going to be 1/8 of an inch above the voice box. So if you flush your fiberglass with this lip, your acrylic's going to be sticking out 1/8 of an inch, and it's going to look stupid. So be sure and have your fiberglass 1/8 of an inch taller than this front face right here, so that when you drop your acrylics in, it will fit nice and neat. You can actually use the acrylics that I send for this voice box as a fitment device. Just put some real thin tape over them so they don't get scratched and goofed up. And just put them in place and then bring your Bondo right down to them. And as it starts to cure, when it's still kind of soft, pop them out and get them out of the way. Don't let the Bondo harden on them or you'll screw your acrylics up. Also, do the same step process for your sponge material on this. Obviously, you don't have to worry about on the back side of this one, but what you're going to have to do on this one, I'm just going to grab this little acrylic right here. This is actually for the Season 1, but for this Pilot one, it doesn't have rounded corners. It has flats because they go in from the front and they are going to sit against this wall. Go ahead and do all your normal stuff, you know, prime your dash, paint your dash, get everything painted in here nice and neat the way you want it. So when you get it painted, I'm going to go ahead and tell you, your acrylics are not going to fit. They're going to be tight. And that's okay. That's normal, and I expect that, and that's what I'm telling you to expect, because that's just the way it is. Because everybody's going to spray a different amount of primer. They got high build, low build. You got different kinds of paint. So everyone's going to end up with a different dimension inside this voice box. So what you're going to do, you're just going to sand the edges of your acrylics right here. You need to get a block and some sandpaper and glue the sandpaper to the block so it's nice and flat. And be very slow about it. Use something like 180 grit. Don't use 80 grit. You'll screw it up. So use 180. Be real slow. Matter of fact, you can even use a chop saw. If you're good with a saw, you can hold the acrylic down and just take the ever so slightest tiny bit off of it. Measure your voice box with a caliper and then put a mark on your acrylic and just cut a little bit off of the acrylic with your saw. Be sure and cut the same amount off of each side. Let's just say you take a millimeter or a 0.5 millimeters off of the acrylic. You need to split that up, and if you're going to do 0.50, then you're going to do 0.25 on each side, left and right. You don't want to take the whole amount off of one side. Hope that makes sense. Okay, now then, I'm going to talk about the acrylics that go in from the back side, because your side strips on the Pilot go in from the back, and all these go in from the back. So I'm going to go ahead and tell you, when I design these, I'm going to drop this in just to show you. They drop in really easy, and so the adverse effect of that is they drop out really easy. All right, go to the grocery store. You're going to get something very similar to this. This is just an injector I use for making these voice boxes and for my silicone molds and stuff. But you're going to get a turkey injector from the grocery store. It's going to have a metal tip on it, much kind of like this. But this goes in my air blower, and it's for pumping up balls, basketballs, and whatnot. But anyway, you want to get a turkey injector that's got the metal tip on it. Get some 100% silicone. Be sure it does not have any caulk in it, just 100% silicone. Put you some in from the back. It doesn't take much, just a glob about that big or whatever. Put the backside back in your turkey baster. I mean, not the baster, the injector. And then you're going to get inside here. I'm going to use this little needle as a tool. You're going to come inside here and put a little bit of silicone on the wall of the voice box, barely touching the acrylic. All right, do this on all four corners. Now you'll notice in here, every hole, let's see if I can get it right, every hole has a lip inside. Be sure, the idea here is don't let any silicone get onto the acrylic that exceeds the lip, because once the lights come on and you're looking at it from the front, you may see that little glob of silicone in there. So you've got enough lip here, and if you keep it built on the side of the wall, you won't have that happen. And it does not take much silicone, just a tiny, tiny little dab. I mean, little bitty, just enough, let it dry, and let these acrylics get in place. So that's it, guys. If you got any questions, just hit me up. I'll do the best I can to help. Take care.